Hi everybody, welcome to Your Healthier Way. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Kurt. We recently experienced a 7-day juice fast, and we just want to take a few moments to give you a quick recap on how things went for us. I know we've been sort of away for a few weeks, so this will be a chance for us to kind of get caught up with you on where we've been at. So Lisa, you want to start?
Sure. Well, the first thing is that we set out to do a 7-day juice fast. So first of all, for me, I knew that it would not be an option to eat food or have anything other than juice or water. So, and well, I also had tea. So that made it easy, actually. I didn't even think about food. I didn't have to suffer the temptations. So that went pretty smoothly. And when I got hungry, I just had juice. It was pretty simple. I did not feel super energetic, but I also was not lethargic. Now, I didn't feel like going out and going to the gym and working out, because a juice fasting period is a time to rest and allow your body to detox.
Right.
So you really don't want to go to the gym and be trying to work out. You may not have the energy for it. Some people do. Some people feel really energetic. Some people feel like they just want to sleep. For me, I felt pretty even-keeled, and emotionally, my emotions were pretty level, and mentally I was fine. I was able to go to work, which my job requires concentration and fast processing of information in the interpreting field. And I found that that was no problem. I was just very relaxed. Now, the last day I did experience a glitch, because part of the juicing that I did, to make it a little bit easier and more convenient, is I bought supposedly fresh squeezed orange juice from one of the local health food stores, and I would add that to the juice. It would kind of help stretch it so that we didn't have to work so much and juice so many things all the time. The first couple of days that went fine, but my last day of juicing, I was hungry before going to bed, so I had 8 ounces of this orange juice straight up, and then I laid down. Woke up in the morning with a huge lump in my throat, shortness of breath, and tired. I realized that what I had was really bad reflux. So then I asked myself, what is causing this? Well, first I just wanted to get rid of it, but then I'm looking at what is causing it. So the first thing is, of course, the obvious, which I didn't even think about at the time, is laying down after drinking it. I know we shouldn't lay down after eating, but I didn't even think of it, and I just laid down. So I think that was the main thing, and all the acid comes up, of course, when you're laying down, and the acids can come up with such force that it actually goes up into your sinuses and go down into your lungs. So it can create sinus problems, it can create asthmatic type symptoms, and many times people don't associate the reflux with the other problems. In fact, they often treat themselves for sinuses and asthma or allergies, when what they really need is to address the root cause, which is what's causing the reflux.
Sure.
So that's a simple thing to resolve, is don't lay down after drinking.
Right.
The other thing could be that the oranges that were juiced by the store, maybe they weren't ripe, which makes them very acidic. And just the week prior to doing the juice fast, I think my body was probably pretty acidic, because I had not been eating as much raw food as I had prior to that. So add to that maybe oranges that weren't very ripe, and that could certainly do it. But everything went great up until that last day. What happened that last day wasn't a problem because I did a juice fast. It had to do with other factors that we discussed. And I think it was great. I think it's a great reset. My face started clearing up. I lost 1 pound a day. And I felt pretty good. So I would certainly do it again. Now, your experience, you said, was a little bit different.
It was a little bit different. And one of the things that we did to kind of kick off our juice fast is, we've mentioned this film a number of times, is we watched Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, which was kind of a good motivator for us to get started. And it's also a good reminder of some of the things that you can experience in a juice fast, and some of the things to keep in mind when you're going into a juice fast or coming out of a juice fast, especially when you're doing one for more than, say, 5 days. Now, we've done them 3-day juice fasts before, and that we've talked about on film. But this was actually a 7-day juice fast. So, after that 5th day, there's, a little bit more detox taking place. You got to be a little bit more careful about what you're doing and how you're doing it, things like that. Now, we've talked also before, I did a 10-day juice fast a few years ago. And that was certainly a good experience for me. And the 7-day juice fast was also a good experience for me, save the fact that the first, I think, day of my juice fast, I actually cheated a little bit. And I had some, I don't remember what it was some olives or something like that.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't a 7-day juice fast for me. And I think I cut shy, I cut the juice fast just shy of the 7th day, like in the nighttime of the 6th day. So it was less than a 7-day juice fast for me, but I still got the benefits from it. Now, one of the things that I experienced the first time I did my juice fast and this time when I did my juice fast is I had a lot of cravings. I was very hungry and I craved a lot of things, especially salty type foods. For whatever reason, I'm at a point in my life where a lot of my cravings manifest in the form of salt. So, or the need for salt. So, when I did a 10-day juice fast a few years ago, I was not a raw vegan. It was just sort of a reboot for me. And in fact, I believe in the film, or maybe not in the film, but Joe Cross, who's the producer and the creator of the film Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, has mentioned before that doing a juice fast, like maybe once every quarter, so 4 times a year or so is really a good reboot for your body, even if you're not a raw vegan. If you just want to be healthy, it's a nice way to reboot. And he suggests a minimum of 5 days to do that. So when I did it as a non-raw vegan, I got that beneficial reboot. The problem that I experienced afterwards or during that juice fast, I'm craving all these salty foods. So of course, when I come out of the juice fast, I do, the first day I'm okay, I'm doing the right things, and then usually the second or third day, I'm just shoveling all kinds of foods that probably are not very good for me into my system. So I'm kind of, and I'm overindulging in them because I crave them so much. I've deprived myself. So, through that deprivation, my mind is causing me to want to make up for all of that lost salt, I guess, in those cravings. And I kind of experienced the same sort of thing during this fast. When I came out of the fast, I actually did okay for the first day or so, and then second or third day, I just started to crave, foods that were, I don't know if I wasn't eating non-raw vegan foods to begin with. I actually started, but I was eating a lot of nuts, and then I started eating a bunch of raw vegan chocolate stuff, and anything to really satiate my hunger and my craving for sweets and salts and things like that. And then I think probably within a week or so, I was cheating on my raw vegan plan, and so I found myself going and buying. I was buying chips and hummus a lot. It was organic food. It was the hummus that I was buying was it wasn't heavily processed. It was from the health food store. The chips I was buying were non-GMO organic blue corn chips, but they had salty flavoring on them and things like that. But again, I was just overindulging in this stuff, and I sort of lost my way for I'd say 2 weeks anyways, or almost 2 weeks, the better part of a week and a half at least. And then Lisa ended up leaving town to go visit family, and I was home alone for a long weekend, which was a great time for me to really sit down and be with our dogs and connect with them. But I also used that time to overindulge in chips and hummus. So no raw veganism there.
There's worse thing to indulge in.
There are worse things to indulge in, absolutely.
So
but
keep that in mind.
one of the things that I've experienced, I had been a raw vegan for probably the better part of 3 months or so, And so I still had a lot of long ways to go before my body was really clean, but it was a lot cleaner than it was before I became, got into the raw vegan diet plan. And so when I was eating chips and hummus, or lots of nuts or whatever, I may have had some rice crackers in there as well. The salty deposits and things like that, I was noticing them that much more in my system. And some of the problems like hip and back problems and digestive problems that I was experiencing before really seemed amplified in comparison to the way that they used to be before I became a raw vegan, because my body was clean and all of a sudden I throw all this junk at it, which again, there's a lot worse things out there to call junk than rice crackers or non-GMO blue corn chips and hummus and things like that. But still they had an effect on my body that was very, very noticeable.
I remember when you went to take me to the airport, you could barely walk, and I was shocked. And I think, like what we eat shows up in our bodies.
Absolutely.
And it was unbelievable how stiff you were and how sore you were and how acidic your body was from having eaten that. Absolutely.
And I used to have quite a few problems with my lower back and the hips, and especially in the mornings. And then I started noticing during this time period that especially my left hip, that was always a little bit worse, was really affecting my ability to walk without limping.
Oh yeah, you're pretty crotchety then.
Yeah, and last night, again, I went and overindulged in salty, organic chips, but salty chips nonetheless,
chips
and
hummus.
Again. And I woke up this morning and my hips were just way out of whack. I was so sore.
And this has happened more than once, so it's not
Yes.
just like, well, maybe it's something else. I mean, sometimes it could be, the position you sleep in, maybe you didn't stretch or you haven't worked out, but there's certainly for you, I think there's a big tie-in between the type of food you eat and the body aches you have. It happens to be in your hips, but it could be pain and inflammation anywhere in the body.
And it also,
I never think it's food related.
No, that's absolutely true, and it also affected my digestive system. Some of the digestive issues that I used to have started to crop up. Not as bad as they were before I started the raw vegan diet plan, but I could see it wouldn't take long before they get to that point. And my brain not functioning as clearly.
Really?
I was probably a little more irritable during those times. I was also more sluggish. I even though you were gone, I was still working, and I work a full-time job, and I go to work and I need to focus. I've got a job that requires a lot of brain work and a lot of focus, and it would take me a long time in the morning to really start going on to things that I needed to accomplish for the week. And as a result, I didn't accomplish as much as I had hoped to by the end of the week at work. So, let's not forget that in Western culture, we like to separate often our mind and our bodies. And I'm not exactly sure where that comes from. But, oftentimes people that are very cerebral focus on the mind aspect of their lives, and people that are very athletic maybe focus on the body aspect of their lives. But rarely do we, in our culture, tend to combine those and see those as both parts of our body. I'm not sure why, but let's not forget our brain is attached to the rest of our body. The brain is part of the body, and it helps the rest of the body function. And the brain functions off of the things we eat just as much as the rest of the body does. So
the emotions too.
And the emotions and all of that. My brain was definitely affected by the way I was eating, as well as some of the aches and pains that I experienced. So this was all good, though. This was a great learning experience, and I said early last week that I really need to get back onto the raw vegan diet plan, and all week long I think I did okay, but as soon as weekend came along and I decided I wanted to cheat again and have chips and hummus last night,
party time.
Wow, I just woke up really in a bad place this morning. So it's really amazing how that works. Now that said, raw vegan diet plan isn't for everybody. It's not an easy thing to do.
And it's very hard to do 100% of the time. And sometimes, as we were discussing yesterday, when we deny ourselves things, we want them more.
Exactly.
So it's a path of finding what works for you. But the more raw fruits and vegetables you can eat, the better off you're going to be.
No, that's absolutely true. And I think you have to really find, and we've said this before, everybody's got to find their own formula for how that works and be aware of who you are and where you're at. And especially, it's one thing to really change your diet plan, if you want to try raw veganism. It's a great time to do it when say you're in your 20s, or if you're in your 30s. It's still, you're okay to give it a try, and it might be a little bit more feasible for you to give it a shot. I will attest for my part that getting into your mid-40s and trying to do it, it seems like it's much harder to make a change like that. I mean, I've changed my diet before when I was in my 30s, and it wasn't this hard.
And the reason is that I think it's just we have more years of establishing bad habits, and the longer you have those bad habits, the harder they are to change. The more accumulations we have in our bodies when we start them at a later age. But that just emphasizes the importance of still doing it, because we have to detox what we have put in our bodies, so that in another 30, 40, 50 years we're not suffering, like a lot of people suffer these days.
Yeah, and that's very true. It's just, I can just attest from my own experiences that it's easy, that it's not easy. I mean, I think we mentioned before that I tried diets very similar to raw veganism. At the time, I didn't know the raw vegan diet plan was a thing. I was trying to emulate diets of chimpanzees or bonobos and of gorillas at different times. And I think all three of those diet plans that I tried where I was, at various stages in my 30s. And I did not have the difficulty then that I do now as staying on a raw vegan diet plan. You also have to gauge how much stress are you going to experience by trying to change your diet plan. If you're going to be really stressed out by trying to do something like I'm trying to do, you're going to end up with health issues because of your stress.
Well, just before we did a juice fast or during, I was reading an experience about a lady who went from the standard American diet. She never ate raw vegan. She probably didn't have many fruits and vegetables in her diet. From that, she went to a 10-day juice fast, I think, and she was just retching and vomiting and sick and diarrhea.
Oh, right.
And it was terrible. So be sure to work with someone who is certified in detoxification, who can guide you so that you do things in a way that is a slow acclimation of your body.
Right.
I would never recommend eating everything and then just say, hey, I'm going to do a 3-day juice fast or a 10-day juice fast. That's too extreme, too much of a shock on your body, too much of a shock emotionally, and sometimes our bodies aren't prepared to handle that.
Right.
That cleansing process, and it ends up leaving us with, no pun intended, a bad taste in our mouth, and then we never want to do it again.
Exactly.
Speaking of taste, I do want to mention some of the juices that we had. Most of the ones that I had made for us were a variation of the lemon ginger blast, which is often seen on YouTube, which includes lemon and ginger, apples for sweetness, celery and cucumber because they're very hydrating and they produce a lot of juice, so it helps to stretch out your budget. And then we also added a variety of green leafy herbs like kale, spinach, dill, cilantro, parsley, basil, mint, Swiss chard. And I think I would have about a gallon, and you'd have about a gallon a day that we would take and have throughout the day, and then at night if we wanted more, we just made more. Maybe it was something simple like carrot, celery, cucumber. Those are the kind of juices we had. And then at night I just had tea with lemon and honey. I did allow myself to have that. And a couple of days into it, I remember we started having vegetable broth. One of them I made myself, which was really good, with just a homemade broth. The other one we had a pre-packaged organic vegetable broth.
Which wasn't very good.
No, it was not good at all. But the homemade one was really good, and especially in the winter because it was really cold. Now it's just fabulous today, and it's springtime. But when we did this juice fast, it was winter, and the last thing you feel like doing is not eating cooked food and not having something warm at night. So that really was helpful.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, the broths did make a difference. The homemade ones.
Yeah.
And that did help.
And once the fast was over, I took the vegetables from the broth and blended them in the Vitamix and made a fabulous soup. So
Yeah.
nothing wasted.
Yeah, it was great. So, so I do want to ask as well, if you can talk just briefly about what are the benefits of doing a reboot type of juice fast for, say, 5 days, 10 days, what have you.
It's a great way to break you out of a pattern. If you have a certain pattern of eating a certain way, going out to eat at restaurants, or having a lot of sugar, or having a lot of grains, or eating in front of the TV set, it really changes your physical habits, which also affects you mentally. For me, one thing that also affects me is going out of town. When I go out of town and come back, I usually come back doing something a little bit different than what I used to do. So any kind of break from the monotony and the norm helps you to get on a little bit of a different path. Did that answer your question?
I think so. So we both, and we've talked about this now, that we both experience slightly different feelings and had different experiences in going into and coming out of the juice fast. And in your case, it was wonderful. I mean, it worked out really well for you.
Was steady, even keel. I really was surprised. I was expecting to feel either like you did, like really hungry or really tired, hoping for really energetic, but it was just even keeled. It was fine.
Afterwards you felt?
Well, afterwards, because of the reflux, I had other issues, which I do want to do a video just on reflux. And that led to other issues. But what you do is you correct it so that's not an issue.
Okay.
Next time. But it had nothing to do directly with because I did a juice fast. That's just what I want to emphasize.
Can you make any suggestions, say, for people that were in my circumstance, where when I do go through a juice fast, but when I come out, I have just this insatiable craving to overindulge in the things that are probably not the best for me to overindulge in. Do you have any?
I would say, just like we set our minds to just have juices for 7 days, set your mind and have a plan on how you're going to come out of it. The best way to come out of a juice fast is to start having smoothies and then whole fruit. With juices, you've taken out most of the fiber, so now you're going to start adding the fiber back. And there are people that go from a juice fast to eating starch, and they end up really sick. They end up in the hospital. So that's one thing that's worrisome, is when someone goes to the extreme after. So have a plan, have smoothies, and even if your plan includes starting to have some more solid foods and cravings, try to make those cravings the raw gourmet, like the other ones that the taco dip and the things like that that you had, as opposed to going to chips and hummus, which is cooked and processed.
Okay. So really, bottom line then is a juice fast maybe 4 times a year is probably a really good way to reboot your system.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do that, be careful not to overindulge in really bad foods before and just after doing a juice fast. In fact, if you're not interested in raw veganism, that's fine. It's really not for everybody, and I think we've said several times that it's not an easy path to follow, especially as you get a little bit older and you have more accumulation of other things in your system. But the point that we really like to drive home with all of the videos that we make is more raw fruits, more raw vegetables added to whatever diet plan you're on is absolutely going to help your health. There certainly is the extreme of 100% raw veganism is going to clean you out, and you're going to probably change the way you think and change the way you live, and it's going to it's a wonderful experience, but it's hard. So if you don't want to go there, just think about more raw fruits, more raw vegetables, and
That's
a
right.
4 time a year or so
Juice
reboot with a
fast.
juice fast, and see how that works out for you. It's again, we all have to find our own formula. So,
Sounds good to me.
all right. Well, thanks for watching. I think we've covered quite a bit with this juice fast, and we'll look forward to talking to you again. Welcome to springtime and
Yes.
your health, your way.
Enjoy it. Take care.
Bye.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Your Health, Your Way. I'm Lisa again.